to start my intro of the part one series, it's going to go into the one I've already recorded. Uh, I think the first question a lot of people have is, how are you doing? I will particularly say now it's been exactly a year and 11 months. And yes, I've had rescue doses within that year, maybe 5 total. And it wasn't very, it was very, very low dose. It was just like MRI machine, kind of like, oh my God, I'm going to freak out. And stuff I had to get done. And that's why in this series, you're going to say, like, if you got stuff to do, do it first before you start tapering. But me, anxiety's gone. I don't have problems, particularly with anxiety as much. I don't have a problem driving places. Grocery stores still give me a little loopiness and weirdness. I don't know. I haven't tested it within these last 3 days. These last 3 days have been pretty good. So, yeah, I think things do heal in time, but there's still other things you gotta work on. So that's the first statement I wanted to give an intro is, will you get better? Yes, you will. Definitely. And I did not believe I will. And I mean, I did not believe. For example, I looked like this, and even worse cases, I've looked terrible. And yes, I've had my sleepless nights that endured for a very long time. And you think life's over many, many times. And so that's the first statement I wanted to make. At the end, I'm going to put some bloopers just for fun. Things that I just didn't do right on the recording. So I figure, I'm like, why not keep them? Throw them at the end, maybe if give someone a laugh. Anyway. Physically, I still deal with head pressure, a lot of pain, and it's just excruciating, and it gets you miserable. So, you can't. That's just kind of like dealing with the typical stuff. All right, so let's get right into the step one of Are You Ready? Hello, and welcome to take 2 of the Benzo series that I made a while ago. I can't believe how long it's been. That I had the 3 series up, and, well, the funny thing about healing off benzodiazepines and actually going through other things like the physical tension that may come with it, as well as the fact that you have other physical problems, me and my neck issues that I've been dealing with, that significantly gotten better these last 3 days. Prior to that, I was really off the wall. And the reason why I actually made the Benzo series in the first place was there's so much trial and error that's been going on, and things that I believe that were not true. Hearing other people's stories and thinking that they were my story, and people portray it like as if you're going to have their problem. And I think the rationality is gone when you're coming off of benzo. Your reasoning ability, the irrational or being irrational, just starts coming in, and you don't know how to separate what's real and what's not real. And the reason why I made these is because I wanted to share, not that I can't stand really being out on the web, and but the fact is I don't like the suffering I went through. And I think if anyone else had the wisdom from this, and the people who do, it's like you really do want to help other people, because you just can't. I mean, everything's destroyed. Some people draw close to God. Some people lose God. Some people lose connections and with friends and family. And sometimes you don't even know if the source is you or source is them. So this first part, as mentioned, is step 1 is, are you really ready to come off? And the reason why I think that was probably the most important question is because I came off 4 times wrong, and the 4th time was just like, I'm going to stick with it, and it was the worst torture I've ever been through. And then I learned also other things you don't do. So a lot of my life has been what not to do and what to avoid if I were to do it all over again. And I think I would have healed so much better. And sad part is if you're, you know, if you don't have a willing doctor who's going to give you a longer term, longer dose of like Valium, you know, and or even switching over, then it's it's just not going to be fun. It won't be fun. And if you have enough of things that are like Xanax and Ativan, this, you know, faster acting ones, you know, if you have and I developed a program to move doses, make longer term doses, to, instead of just that one time a day, make it 2 times a day, make it 2 to 3 times a day, and how to do that the right way. And a lot of people do it wrong and they don't realize it's like, but I'm taking 1 milligram a day and I just cut it in half and did, you know, it's like you just threw yourself into withdrawal, and that's the problem. So are you really ready? I would say the first thing is, what put you on it in the first place? It would be my first question. If it was anxiety, have you dealt with anxiety? Can you handle that anxiety, whatever that is? Work, responsibility, family life, so on and so forth. Because when you come off a benzo, even at the slightest, even done right, you can still, that anxiety is going to be amplified. And I think a majority don't quite explain it so well. I mean, I think most people do. When they call it down-regulated receptors, I don't know if we really want to call them down-regulated, but sometimes they might be just shrunk dendrites of the brain. So when you think of these being receptor fields of GABA, we don't have a GABA problem. I don't think we really have that a problem with neurotransmitters. It's the receptors that are the problem. And when you start throwing chemistry on them, they're activated. It's almost like if you're a receptor and you start running and you don't stop, eventually what happens, you fall down regulated. And you're not getting up for a while, you know, especially if you haven't eaten and drank water. Now you're cramped up and you just can't even get up. And you need help in order to get your body re-regulated and moving again, but you're not going to get up and run again. That's going to take some time. So these receptors are, again, this is all theory. No one really quite knows. I like Peter Smith's theory on it all, which he believes that the dendritic stems are shrinking, and it's like they're kind of falling away from that connection. And I'm going to have another video in part 2, what to do and how to do it, how to taper. That'll be 2. I don't know. I'll do it. I'm kind of going off the cuff because I lost my notes. So are you really ready? Did you deal with the anxiety? If not, then you have to start now. Don't come off until you've dealt with the anxiety. Not that you're going to get rid of the problem. You might just have to learn how to cope with the problem, move past the problems, or whatever they may be. If it is the type of job, is that job right for you, even though you're good at it? So I noticed that, you know, I can do the corporate world, but it's too much stimulation for me, if you know what I mean. So things about therapy, you might need someone who deals with trauma, so a therapist who's good with trauma, a therapist who knows how to teach mindfulness meditation, because you're going to need to know how to do this melting aspect of your body, just like letting it go limp. And that retrains the amygdala no matter how many times it fires. So you need help with doing that. That saved me a lot of times. A lot of therapy books have them. You just look up audiobooks, like John Kabat-Zinn. He's just type in mindfulness. You'll see him. Mark Williams. I forget the other one. Penman, I think is the last name. But there's so many of them. Just type anxiety, type mindfulness, type in brain, rewiring the brain. That one's one of my favorite ones. I'll just post them right here. But the problem is interesting, is these audiobooks will do nothing for you unless you yourself are ready to move on. See, we might have some internal codes that we have been conditioned by growing up And no matter how much we know what we should do or how we should behave or how we should view things that happen bad to us, they're almost like they're written in stone inside of us. And no matter how many times you try to talk over it, it doesn't change. So that's why we may need therapy help. Being mentally ready, and are you ready to come off? The next thing would be, are you ready to come off, is when your surroundings, your family, how to deal with them. And if you have toxic relationships, that I can't tell you exactly what to do there, but see, the hardest part, you have to have a real humble view of this, because is it them or is it me? So for example, if I'm the person who says to a family member or a friend, you don't understand what I'm going through, that's me. That's me antagonizing another person. And what do they expect? On the outside, I can look perfectly normal, but to them, it's like, you're a mess, man. What's wrong with you? You're attacking me and stuff. I'm not attacking you. You don't understand what I'm going through. You see what I mean? So yeah, you have to know, am I talking the right way to them? And whether it's to doctors or things, and sometimes we may not be good at communicating, because especially if you're in tolerance right now, it's not going to go too well. So the way you do it is always in a compassionate, calm way. And this is the medical notes for, when you have the medical guide, the notes that come with your prescription. I have Valium, Xanax, I have them all here. But when you read it, be like, hey, can I show you something? Calmly. And then you show them this. It's not coming from you anymore. And you read, like, the doctor pointed this out to me. And you can say, the doctor, this is technically the doctor. It says, it is not known if Xanax is safe and effective when used for treating panic disorder for longer than 10 weeks. And how long have you been in your prescription? The funniest thing is my script, 3 refills, and I think the pill bottle had 50 pills in it. So 7 times 7 is 49, which is 7 weeks. So 1 refill. Am I saying that right? Per day, yeah, 49 days. So technically 50 days. So you're figuring like now 3 refills. So yeah, that's 21 weeks. So, or more, really. It's just over 21 weeks. So how's that work? So anyway, you see that it's not known if it's safe and effective to treat anxiety disorder for more than 4 months. And then you can simply read the side effects, seizures, mania, withdrawal symptoms. And it's so funny, it actually has withdrawal symptoms on here, but yet a doctor will say, yeah, just stop it whenever you want to. According to this, it even tells you, the provider, about slowly stopping it, avoiding withdrawal symptoms. Now, Valium says the same thing, but it's just different. Not known effective for children under 6 months of age. But not known if it's safe and effective to use longer than 4 months, same thing. So almost every benzo is probably going to say that. But read the side effects and the symptoms of withdrawal. So you let that be your guide in talking to people, your friends, family, and your doctor. That they have to follow this, because if they don't follow it, and that's a written form, but you have to speak in a compassionate way. Are you ready? Are they now ready? You see what I mean? So if they're not ready, then you're not ready, because you're going to go through a brutal time if it's not done right. If it's done right, there's going to be agitation and irritability, a lot of that stuff. There may be moments of spikes, but I mean, for me, I went through, I got mold, toxicity, I got mast cell, no, I'm going to have a seizure, I have an aneurysm, I have a tumor, and it's like, and it was all lies. None of it was true, but it felt so real. And the problem is, you're going to say, I need to know if it's not. So when in doubt, go to a doctor, but this is about, are you ready? Are you physically ready? If you have a surgery coming up, do not come off, or just pause your tapering if you're tapering. pause it, because if you're going for any type of surgery, they're going to pump you with a benzo type medication, whether it's even benzo, propofol, any anesthetics will actually work on GABA receptors, and even steroids can actually really affect, I think, dopamine as well as GABA receptors, which is interesting because they, in theory, the channel pathways are dopaminergic as well as GABAergic, so it's almost the same pathway too. All right, are you physically ready? Surgeries, be careful. Food, I would say, if you have bad eating habits, I would say, you got to start now and treat your diet like a taper. So if you're the bowl of ice cream, bowl of cereal type of eater, that's got to stop. But you got to start now, but slowly get rid of it. Don't go cold turkey on a diet, because even that will affect, even if you don't touch your benzo, it'll affect you as a person. Your body's going to go with sugar withdrawal, carbohydrate withdrawal. It'll go through all that. Don't go crazy keto. Just be balanced. Be normal. Just think of yourself as like an Israelite, so to speak. Like, you have wheat, have grains, have goat's milk, have this, but just stay away from junk food. Just anything that's packaged, be careful with that. Jif peanut butter, Skippy peanut butter, like junk stuff like that. That's got to stop. And so, which now goes into, are you financially ready? Because there may be days you just can't work. And if you're now an hourly type person, your boss will have to know what you're going through too. You could speak with them in the same way, that showing them the paper, like, the doctor gave me this, and this is going to be a rough ride for me, and blah, 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 blah. All right. Other things such as physically ready is like subluxation, because you're going to get massive suboccipital pain, tightness, rigidity, which gives you head pressure. Other things could be wrong. I mean, you might have to get your neck checked out, because my neck is absolutely horrible. And I do have pulsatile tinnitus, which is more of a compression on veins, possibly the artery. But that subluxation needs to be corrected, and that way, you're just not going to get worse. Because what happens is when you start sitting down and we're just in a misery, that has to be addressed. Try to keep your posture right. Try not to be on the phone like this all the time. That all crunches when I'm doing it, just for sake of demonstration. So physically ready. Those are a number of things. Things you can do food-wise. I mean, I'll probably do another video on it. But just try to probably focus on anti-inflammatory diet. Study that. You should be okay. Medically and chemically ready. That's what we just talked about. If the doctor is willing, these are the other things. If you have, as I mentioned, if you have a surgery coming up, don't do it. But if the doctor is not willing to work with you on the benzo thing, bring those notes with you. Show them, but it says here to come off slowly. And they might tell you, well, you're on the lowest dose, you can just stop. That might be true on paper, but may not be true for you, okay? So especially with me, when I was on Xanax, I got myself down to 0.25, and then I started water titrating, and I was still feeling good, but then I started getting agitated when I was out 20%, and I was doing it too fast, and it was like, oh my God. It was, my brain was burning. I was getting fear and scared about everything that made no sense. I was like, I used to be a medic, and I was like, I would see limbs chopped off and things like, and I never cared. It was like, all right, patch them up, tourniquet, done. But it's like now, it's like even hearing something on television, not now, but while I was, going through it, it was rough. So when you work with the doctor, be careful how you word things. Like when it's doctor versus doctor, like, well, Dr. Ashton has mentioned blah, blah, blah. All right. It's probably better to word it in a way that I spoke to a friend who went who went through a withdrawal. He did it through a clinic or whatever. He went through a place, and they recommended that he moves over to Valium. So I can't do that. I can't go into a place. I can't do that. I have responsibilities. And he said he could have done this simply by himself. He didn't need to go to a place. I mean, try to reason with the doctor, not in a way of challenge. So you got to do that. But if they do cut you off, like my friend, she got cut off. I worry about what to tell someone about that, because if you have a doctor who's not on board, you may have to switch doctors. And what I would recommend, number one, don't say you want to come off ever. That's probably the way I would go with it. I would probably start off be like, is there a way I'll ever get off of this? And that you can test them. That would be the first thing. Test them. Is there a way to get off of this? And they said, nope, you're going to be on it forever. Then you say, like, let's say you're on Ativan or Klonopin or something, you want Valium. Be like, is there a way I can just take, like, is there like a single dose that I don't have to take it so often when things go awry? Is there something that can kind of like be a little bit more smoother? Is there another type of med that I can take? Like, act as if you want to stay on it with your doctor. Then he might be like, well, we can try Valium. Like that's it. I'm always wondering if they get bigger kickbacks from like Xanax as opposed to Valium. Because it seems like it's impossible for a lot of people to get the longer version. So play like you want to stay on it, and that's what I mean by you got to feel them. The way you word your questions, like, I got to get off of this. The doctor's going to be like, why? And then you start throwing out, well, I heard that and I learned that and blah, blah, blah. Now the doctor's scared. Now they're going to hear lawsuit in their head. They're going to hear all this stuff. They're like, I'm getting out of this now. That's what they'll do. And that's probably why they cut people off, because of the way we speak to them. And I can't quite blame them when you really know what a doctor goes through. But they are kind of very, it's very ignorant of them to cut someone off. Very ignorant, especially when med notes are pretty clear. So once you get that, and then you can see if you can get to a longer lasting one. But play like you want to go on it if you're going to do your own taper without their permission. So, but then when you are tapering, never tell them what dose you're on, because you want to be able to keep getting that prescription. So if you're at the 5 milligram, stock up on it. When you're cutting off, stock up on it. Keep refilling your script on the day you need to get your script, so that way you have extras. And then eventually you talk to your doctor, be like, I don't think I need a 5 milligram. It seems to be too much. Is there a lower dose version? Blah, blah, blah. You see? Jedi mind tricks. Then you get the 2 milligram. That'll help you out. Okay. Supplements. I'm going to be talking a lot about that in another video in detail. But if you do get cut off, there's some possible solutions. One's called Phenibut. Some say Phenibut, Phenibut, or Kava. But Kava has to be made by someone who gets the real stuff, not simply like, even though this stuff kind of works to a degree, the Pharma GABA, I'm sorry, Herb Pharma, Kava. Not Pharma GABA, that stuff's not going to help you. And if it does, you have a leaky brain. Then you got to fix your gut. Those might be alternatives if you have no meds and you're going insane. Phenibut is a nootropic that works just like a benzodiazepine. Theanine, I've tried it. I can't say it really helps. Or NRF2 is I hear it's amazing. So why like when you study nootropics, what their goal is actually to fix brain receptors, to actually nerve growth factor of the brain. Ashwagandha is known to repair brain receptors and neurogenesis. Gotu kola is another one. It's probably not a safe one because you can't really use it more than 6 weeks either. So nootropics can be risky, but Phenibut works like a benzo, and you would also have to taper off of Phenibut. Works the same exact way. I never tried it. I've always wanted to, just to see how it works. I'd even be willing to take one just for the sake of everybody. I'd be like, take one to see if it works. And if it feels the same way like a Xanax does, I'd be like, there you go. Then again, get some Phenibut. Or go to Mexico and you get it over the counter. You can get Xanax and Valium over the counter in Mexico. I guess that's illegal, right? Yeah. I don't know. I know someone who used to go there and they get it. But I don't know. I think it's lace because he gave me one time. It feels different. Let's just say it feels different. Okay. Finally, support system. Do you have a support system? Are you ready? Your family, are they ready? Again, how do you speak to them? But the next thing is about friends and Facebook. You have to be careful, beyond careful with Facebook. YouTube videos, got to be careful with those too. I only have 2 people who probably really helped me. Jasmine is probably the first beginning phase. She is very extremely knowledgeable with everything. And if it wasn't for her, I would not known where I was going. Even though the problem is you gotta, when you listen, you gotta make sure you're listening right. I didn't listen right, and I did something wrong. And that was my 4th taper went wrong because I over applied something that she mentioned. It was about separating into multiple doses, and that's when I learned is like, oh, you got to do that slowly, very slow. And I have a Excel program that I made. It does everything for you, everything. You type in what you're on, how many doses you're on, boom, it sets you it creates a whole entire calendar of what you're doing today, next day, blah blah blah, or weekly. Facebook is probably 80% dangerous to be on. Benzo groups in Facebook you'll find 20% of the people are very helpful. They know the warnings, they know the dangers, but the others, you're going to read of people complaining about how they feel. And the problem is when if you're intolerant and you're not feeling good, for example, I watched one video of someone shaking, and guess what happened? I started shaking. And I'm like, oh my God, it's dystonia. Oh my God, it's Parkinson's. Oh my God, it's like I went crazy. And thanks to my friend Dana, who's got a Facebook group, I would say hers is the best, but I don't know. I think it's private. I don't know if you can find it and search. But she told me the best thing. Not your story. Whenever you see someone else, not your story. That's how they're reacting. So don't make yourself react based on their story. You don't know what their story is. Again, why did you go on a benzo? Some people's because I had sleep problems. Dumb reason to go on one, but that's what doctors give it to us for. Some are for anxiety. Some are for some massive trauma that happened for a moment, but they've been on it for so long. And so I do know that those who don't have mental trauma go through probably go to get off easier. They heal a little bit more easily. For the ones who I've met, because in one of my one video that I have is like I talked to the barber guy, the massage therapist, the I don't know, the older lady, and then there's other people, the ER, radiology tech, and it's like they're fine, they're perfectly fine. And I realize it's because their brains are just focused on doing and living, and they don't have any connections. They're humble. They don't have any challenges in their brains. They're not in competition with anybody else. And it's just like, and they healed very nicely. And genetics, I think, plays a role. All right, so this better be still recording, or I will go crazy. Oh, it is. Good. 26 minutes. That is probably enough. This is really about, are you ready to come off? Are the things in place? So remember that. The other things I would probably want to mention, if my outline, I can't remember what I had written. If you're drinking alcohol, stop now. If you're gambling, stop now. If you have other stressors, stop them. Stop them. And treat everything like a taper. As I mentioned, if you're eating junk food, slowly get rid of the junk food before you touch your taper. If you got a gambling problem or something, slowly, get rid of it. Try to, I'd try probably that one. You might want to try cold turkey, but, maybe go from, betting on horses to scratch off tickets to, I don't know. But I mean, like those OCDs, might have to change. Therapy would help that one. Other stressors in your life, are you doing too much? You want a good book, is read a book on burnout. It's not on audiobook, but I can't remember where. So audiobooks are great. They're great to listen to even at nighttime because it bores me to sleep. So that is it. Just looking at a quick thing. Try to always remember who you are when you're well. I think I would say, like, I never had a seizure disorder, never had a tumor, all these things. But if you're really like something's wrong, there's nothing anyone can say to you. So then go get tested. Go to the neurologist, get an MRI, just get tested. If you want, say, hey, I got an MRI, I got a CAT scan. You want to look at it with me? I'll look at it with you. I don't mind that. I just don't know how you'll get a hold of me. I'll probably put my one email address in the comments. So that's it. I hope I touched on everything. Knowing me, I'm going to redo this whole thing again because I got OCD and perfectionism. And, well, that's final. So stay tuned for the next one I'm going to redo. Let me just pull up. I don't even know what I talked about in the second one. Second part 2 is tapering. All right, so I'm going to actually go through the Excel program I created and talk about the realities of coming off. For example, the 10%, cut 10%, cut 10%. I don't agree with it. And not fully. I do agree with it, but I'm going to talk about the actual tapering. And then part 3 was named Benzo withdrawal and dealing with it. I remember that one. Okay. I still have my videos recorded, so I can at least get my outlines out of there. All right, so until then, be well. Be sure you're ready before you start any of this. And then once you start, then you can watch part 2 on how to taper the right way or how to cross over to a longer dose. All right, bye. This is what someone looks like who has crazy, weird head pressure and neck pain. I know you're supposed to put the neck brace on your neck, but when you put it on around here, it feels so much better. It's a new fad. Yes, I know what it looks like. Yeah, all right, call that a blooper. You ever notice that every video starts with like, okay, well, never know how to say it. What was the first word you say when you start a video? And cut. See, it's funny. I just started thinking of what's the first word you start off with. Now you can't figure out which word you're going to start off with. It's like the intro of any video is going to be like, oh, I'm going to listen to this one. You ever notice that? Like just the first sentence that somebody says in a video determines whether you're going to listen to the rest. I'm hungry. Should have eaten. I had a shake, but I'm going to do this on an empty stomach. But I did eat. I don't know. I should eat. Is this record? Oh, it's recording. Look like a beanie hat. Hi. Spin top hat.